In this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up for a gig, record that gig, and live stream with the GigCaster 8. Now imagine this is any room, this is a pub, this is your venue, and you're setting up. So this is my PA, which is really heavy. This is the Mackie Reach. It's discontinued, but it's still a fantastic PA speaker. It's just really big and really heavy, and I'm going to go and put it on that speaker stand. Now normally I'd have it on that side, but I've put it that side just for convenience. It has 4 channels in, but that doesn't matter today because all we need is a stereo feed in. So if you've got a speaker that only has 2 in, this is still gonna work because we're gonna plug everything into this. Now speaking of this, what we need to do is we need to have this handy. So I've got a little stand here that is actually a PC laptop stand. I'm gonna place that on this and it's gonna be right next to me. So a nice simple stand, just elevating it so I've got a bit of reach. So what I'm going to do is put the GigCaster onto this. Next is actually plugging in. Now what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to plug the GigCaster into the PA. So it's a simple stereo out to stereo in. To do this you just need 2 cables, 2 TS cables, 2 normal jack cables. And what I've done is this. I've actually used Sucre and put a red one and a blue one on there. So red is right and blue is left. Certainly when you've got a lot of cables, that really helps. So for the GigCaster that I've just taken off the stand, we've got a dedicated left and right there, and then all we need to do is just plug in the right way around, like so. The other end's going into the speaker, no matter what speaker it is. So I've got the GigCaster plugged into the PA. Of course, I'm now going to plug in the power to both. It doesn't actually matter which way around you do this, as long as you've got power to both the GigCaster and also your PA speaker. Now with the GigCaster, you can actually do this with a battery pack, but if you do that, you won't be able to do live streaming because it has one USB-C out. So we're going to use the power adapter that it came with. There are some companies out there that will replicate this into a battery pack, or you can use adapters into battery packs, so you're plugging it into the actual power in source. Please just be aware of that. Obviously be aware of the power drain and make sure you get the right one if that's what you want to do. However, if you're not live streaming, you can use the USB Type-C as a power source input, and certainly when you're plugging the GigCaster into a computer, you don't have to plug this in. You can actually just plug it in via USB-C, and a lot of new computers now will give it the power it needs. Okay, so power is in, cables are plugged up. The next thing you're going to need is one of these. This is a micro SD card. This is a 128 gig one. We need to put it into the GigCaster, and this is what's going to help us to record the gig live. That'll record a 32-bit float, and you have the option to record it just as a stereo out, or you can record as individual tracks depending on what you need. Obviously, if you're recording as individual tracks, it will take more memory, but the advantage of that is, of course, you can remix it later down the line if you've got multiple things plugged in, or if you're happy that the stereo out is fine, you could just have it as a stereo out. It's up to you. The next thing is actually just plugging in our instruments or microphone, whatever you're using, and we're plugging that into the GigCaster. Now, it's totally up to you which way around you want to do this, but the GigCaster, as I've said before on previous videos, has a jack input on the front for channel 1, and that's for guitar. You don't have to use it. You can plug it into the back if you want to, or you can plug a microphone into the back. It's up to you, but it's just nice to actually use it the way it was intended. So I'm going to plug my guitar in on channel 1 and a microphone in on channel 2. So for this, we're using my trusty Gravity Stand travel stand, and then we've also got my microphone here, and we're going to put this front and center. Don't forget to carry all your cables, so an XLR cable for the microphone and also the jack cables to plug in the GigCaster and my guitar. However, if you're going wireless, make sure you've charged those adapters. You don't want to be caught out with no power. And now we're pretty much ready. We've got our mic here, we've got the red guitar plugged in on channel number 1, and then we've also got the mic plugged in and we're ready to go. I just need to power everything up. Major rule always, turn on the speaker last, and then when you've finished, turn off the speaker first. Stops any distortion, stops any feedback. It's just a good rule to follow. So we'll turn the GigCaster on first, and then we'll turn on the speaker. Make sure all your volumes are down. You don't want an unnecessary bump if you haven't plugged your guitar in. You get a buzzing sound from the cable that's sitting on the floor. And with my Mackie Reach, you can see this little green light, and you can turn that off in the settings, but I like to keep it on. That way I know it's on. I've just raised the GigCaster up so you can see it. If you were to plug this in and turn it on for the very first time ever, it'll then start asking you, right, what is the year, what is the date, what is the time? This is so it can timestamp the information for when it records. So now the GigCaster's set up, you've got your master effect at the very end here, and we've also got the independent guitar and microphone inputs from 1 and 2. If you do see a microphone with a little orange dot next to it, it means it's got 48 volts phantom power. Make sure this is switched off if you're using things like a dynamic microphone. So now we need to test the audio, and then the last thing after that is setting up for live streaming. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. The nice thing is if you press the button for that input, so the microphone, you'll actually see a gain gauge, and it's got a little marker where it's ideal to be in. And of course, when you say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, it'll show you where it is, but also you'll probably be singing a little bit louder than that. So I'd have it at the bottom half of that little marker, because if you're throwing your voice a little bit more while you're singing, then you may find that it goes up. Of course, if you're a quiet singer, then you can obviously turn that up, and there's a gain information there. It's at 0 dB to begin with, and then if you press that button again, it goes back to the main mixer. Similarly for the guitar, we need to obviously have a listen to see what it sounds like. We also need to tune this guitar. Maybe we've got to an area that's really, really hot, it's gone out of tune. Top left-hand corner, we've got a tuner built in. There we go. Now, unlike a microphone, with guitars, electric and acoustics, and if you're plugging it in, you may very well have an independent volume control to actually send that signal out. So of course you could adjust that there. And then when you're ready, what we can do is we can bring up the master. Now, of course, every channel has effects, so we can go into those effects and we can change them depending on what they are. So with this one, this has got a traditional RT. This is actually an electric sound. And we want to change that. There's two ways we can do this. On the screen, we can actually tap where it says patch, and we can go through the patches. Or what we can do is we can actually press the effects button on the GigCaster 8, and then you can use the pads. The pads are very, very useful. We can just step through each one. Whoop, you heard that there. As it's starting to feed back with some real big ones. There we go. The best thing to do is find the sound that you like, and then you can put it in the user, and there's also user patches as well as preset patches. And this is a little bit of time that you might need to do at home before you get to the gig, and then you can actually find the one that you like and load that up really quickly. Alternatively, what we can do is we can use one other thing, which is a foot pedal. This is the Boss GAFC, and you can use it with the GigCaster. So it has 6 buttons, and you have to ignore what is actually printed on the GAFC. Because when you plug it in and then you turn the effects on, it actually controls the first 3 effects on here, which is really, really clever. We can actually go up and down effects if you want to. So just by having this on the floor, it gives you a lot more functionality while you're playing. You don't have to touch this, you could do this with your feet. So just to give you a demonstration, if I talk into the microphone here and I go through them, you may start hearing different ones. 1, 2, 1, 2. So the great thing with this is if you've got your users set up, then you can control this. This is channel 1, this is channel 2. So with this first one, I can control the guitar. But I'm going to keep it on the one that I want, which is acoustic reso standard. So let's recap. We've plugged the GigCaster into the PA, and we've plugged in our power. And then we've plugged in our microphone and the guitar that's just sitting just behind here. And then what we've done as well is we've made sure the levels are okay. The next thing we need to do is set this up for live streaming. And to be honest, there's only one thing we really need to do inside the GigCaster. Now, it's very different depending on what phone you've got, but you need a couple of things. So for example, I've got an iPhone 13 mini, and it needs this. It still needs the Lightning to USB connection. If I use the cable that this came with and just plug USB-C into Lightning, then it's actually not going to work. I don't know why this is. I think there's something inside here that translates the audio for you. So for iPhones, certainly that have a Lightning connection, You're going to need a Lightning to USB camera adapter. I would advise go for the USB 3 one, mainly because you've got a port there. If you want to plug it in the power, you can still plug it in and keep your iPhone charged. Certainly if you're going to be live streaming for a long time, 1 to 2 hours, it can obviously take a lot of drain on the phone. So luckily I've got a nice USB-C to A cable, which is a braided cable that came with my audio interface, and I'm going to use this to plug in the phone. Now the last thing you might want to consider for your phone if you're live streaming is a stand, or maybe an arm, and this is the 3D arm, again from Gravity Stands, and these are fantastic. I love these. I actually have 3 of these in the studio, but this one I take out for me for gigging, and the reason is because I can clamp it to pretty much anywhere. So of course I could clamp it to the stand that I've got right here and have it here, and then point this out a little bit, so if I want to move this out a little bit there so people get a side shot, or of course I could clamp it to somewhere else in the pub as long as the cable's long enough. So for this example I'm going to actually clamp this to our stand here. Because it's actually got 3 different parts, what I can do is I can adjust this arm pretty much wherever I want to. So I'm going to move it over here a little bit so it's just not completely in the way. And this live stream is going to be going over to somewhere that is vertical, so I need to actually put it in a vertical format. We'll put our phone there, and then what we can do is we can have a look around and position it where we need to. Then we're going to use the adapter and the cable, and we just plug this cable in. The USB-C end goes into the GigCaster, the other end goes into this adapter. So as you can see, I've got the phone right where I want it. Maybe it's a little bit close. I might move it a little bit further back, but we've got the phone plugged into the GigCaster, and then we've got the GigCaster set up in such a way where if we go into menu, we go into output, and then we go into USB, we go into main, and then we turn it on. And what that does is it sends the audio that's from the main master output to here. There's nothing else to do regarding live streaming. There's just one more thing we need to do before we play, and that's hit record on the GigCaster. Because we've got a micro SD card inside the GigCaster, then from the main menu you'll see the micro SD card symbol, and we just click that, and it'll actually say what you want to do. So we can actually have it in multi-track mode, or we can have it in stereo. So multi-track is off at the moment. We can have it direct, or we can have it pre-fade, or we can have it post-fade. If we have it as off, it means it's just going to record it as a stereo out, just exactly the same as if you've got it going to your PA. It'll also tell you how much is left on the card. So for this, we've got 89 hours. However, if I actually change this over to a post or pre-fade, then I've only got 9 hours and 55 minutes. I mean, 9 hours and 55 minutes, all multi-tracked, and I'm going to be playing for 2 45-minute sets or maybe a 2-hour set. It means I don't even have to empty the card for maybe 2 or 3 gigs. And once all of this is set up, all we need to do is go live here on the phone and then hit record on the GigCaster. The beauty of this is after you've done each song, you can press the blue mark button, and then when you go back into the SD card on the computer, it'll show you where those marker points are. So maybe after every song, or maybe you just want to marker the first set and the second set. It's totally up to you. Now I've been quite lucky here. What I've been able to do is attach my phone and the 3D arm onto the tripod for my camera. So I actually positioned it in such a way that you can still see it, it's there. And then we've got a light on this side, which is really, really bright when I'm next to it. But if I just tilt this over for a second, but then when I come back here, then of course you can see me and that's all fine. You probably can hear me as well through the PA now. Now I wouldn't actually have the GigCaster there, it's behind me now. So let's move our little laptop stand. We can have it there. There we go. So I can see everything here. And then when I start playing, I can hit go live over there. And then I can actually hit record on here. I'm adjusting the microphone and the guitar independently. We've got the main PA here, and of course I can turn it right up if I need to. But then of course it depends on how loud you need it for the PA. The PA of course has its own independent volume control, so you need to adjust that accordingly. And you may have seen this look from a couple of days ago because I'm actually gonna go live right now just to prove that it works. Now in this scenario, I wouldn't have the phone like this. I would actually have it facing me so I can see the screen. People can tell me if it's too loud or too quiet and I can adjust it accordingly. But also I can see the comments. So you'd have the selfie camera. However, of course, the best camera is always the one that's on the back of an iPhone. But let's go live. So I'm gonna hit live, I'm gonna hit record on the GigCaster, and then we're gonna go live and play a couple of songs.
I am up so high, I can see my house. People running around like a little mouse. It's Sunday morning, you're in my head again in New England.
Okay, so we've just finished doing the live stream on the phone. We used the GigCaster to do everything. We've recorded everything as well. I'll leave a link to the GigCaster and all the equipment that I use if you want to go and pick it up. But in the next video, we're going to take the recording and I'm going to show you what we can do with it, but also how you can use the GigCaster with your digital audio workstation on your computer.